Welcome, all you MCU fans, to the latest episode of True Believers here on the Fandom Podcast Network. We are here to discuss the latest and greatest addition to the MCU, and that is Miss Marvel. But before we get started, before I make any other introductions, I gotta just hit the magic button because that is right. We are going to be deep diving into the first two episodes of Miss Marvel, and it'll be spoilers ahead from here on out. So if you have not watched the episodes, go watch the episodes, come back and join us for this amazing podcast covering everything that's going on with Miss Marvel. But I can't do these podcasts alone. The MCU is too big. It's too vast. There's too much going on. So without further ado, let me bring in my co-host. He might be a member of Damage Control. I'm trying to investigate that, but he is my brother from another mother. And of course, the co-founder here at the Fandom Podcast Network, Mr. Kevin Reitzel.
Damage Control was put together because of me. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can understand that.
How's it going, buddy?
It's going well. We've been away from True Believers for a little bit, but we've had a little break in the Marvel action. Here we had Moon Knight, when we had some Doctor Strange, and then a little break here, but we're back with Miss Marvel. Yes, we aren't doing Miss Marvel weekly like we had been with some other shows. At least the way the show has started off, it feels like we're getting a little more meat on our bone through two episodes by doing two episodes, at least at this point, Mr. Reitzel.
Yeah, I think what you're trying to say is we're doing two episodes at a time instead of one each weekly.
Exactly. Yeah. So just real quick, I want to catch up with you on a few things because we've had a lot of breaking Marvel news between the time you were away enjoying your lovely honeymoon. I got to ask you real quick, Thor Love and Thunder, are you excited? Tickets have gone on sale.
I'm to clarify, I have not gone on a honeymoon yet.
That's true.
That's in the planning stages. But yes, I'm looking forward to Thor Love and Thunder. Yes.
Yeah. And of course, too, just real quick, season 2 of Loki has started filming. I don't know if you can hear the weather outside of me. It's a little bit of a thunderstorm right now. Thor's just acting up with Stormbreaker, so my apologies for that. But it's an exciting time in the MCU, Kevin. But we got a brand new show to talk about, and I think we just need to jump right in it. So let's get into phase 1 of this wonderful podcast. Okay, Kevin, so we're diving in. We got the plot description for Miss Marvel. You care to kind of fill the people in on what's going on? And I guess was it Jersey?
Yes, Jersey City. We are in Jersey City, and this is episode 1, Generation Y. It was the episode name, and it aired on June 8th, 2022, directed by Eldid El Albi and Bilal Falal. And the plot description goes as: Kamala Khan is a 16-year-old high schooler and fangirl of the Avengers, particularly Captain Marvel. After failing another driving test and meeting with school counselor Gabe Wilson, Kamala and her best friend Bruno complete her Captain Marvel cosplay for AvengerCon while avoiding her strict parents, Yusef and Muniba. Kamala receives a package from her grandmother containing a golden bangle, which Muniba sees as junk. After attempting and failing to convince her parents to let her go to AvengerCon, Kamala and Bruno sneak out and attend anyway, taking the bangle for her cosplay. After getting there, she puts it on, but it causes her to shoot energy constructs, causing havoc. Bruno rushes Kamala home, where a distraught Muniba pleads with her to focus on her own story and grounds her. In a mid-credit scene, Department of Damage Control, the DODC, agents P. Cleary and Sadie Deaver watch a video of Khan's incident at AvengerCon and head to New Jersey to find and detain her. First reactions, Kyle?
So I have to be honest with you. This first episode, I found it intriguing because I've liked a lot of the character setup we got in this. And I think kind of learning about her family dynamic and the world Kamala lives in right now is important with this character. But I just kind of also felt like I was watching something on the CW or something like that a little bit too. A lot of teen drama, a lot of teen angst. We really didn't get kind of into a Marvel feeling of this show until really the last few minutes of the episode. And it felt like a lot of teen drama, which I know going into this show, we knew this. Marvel is doing some experimentations right now, and they are trying different approaches and different things. And this show was designed to be approaching a little bit of a younger audience. And I think they did some fun things in there that really would appeal to a younger audience right now too, Kevin.
No, I agreed. I don't know if this series is going to be for everyone, and I didn't go in with any expectations, and I did find myself enjoying the episode and just learning about this Kamala Khan character, and learning a little bit more about the Pakistani culture as well, which I thought was kind of nice and refreshing. And that you're right, the MCU is trying different things and really kind of exploring a lot of the aspects of the comic history, whether it might be altered a little bit here and there. But we're also learning about other different cultures, which I like. And we did that same thing with Moon Knight, which I thought was really cool, the Egyptian side of things. And this was nice to kind of see, an American girl, in Jersey City, deep, obviously with her parents and, a little overbearing maybe, which a lot of teenagers can understand, and having to live with and deal with, yet being a teenager in today's high school. And it was learning about the story too, from Iman Vellani, who the actress who plays Kamala Khan, and learning that she was a big fan of the MCU and big fan of Miss Marvel before she ever even got the role, was another thing I liked. There's a great little 5-minute kind of behind the scenes making of on Disney Plus about Miss Marvel that I suggest people watch. And yes, it does have a CW teenage kind of feel thing to it, but that's done on purpose. Like I said, this is targeting a particular audience, and it may not sit well with everyone else. But I think that there's certain things in this story that a lot of people could probably take from and not sympathize with literally, but kind of like, I've been in a similar situation like this, or I've had a friend like that, or I've had parents like that. And so, yeah, the first episode was kind of just setting up her and her story and her background, which is kind of important because, we got little teases to what was to come.
Yeah. And I think this is something, as we get into this podcast and hit some of the other phases we're going to talk about too, because there's a lot of variations in this show from what was in the comic books. And this is, I really feel like Marvel is starting to kind of they're sticking with a just general guideline on some of the stuff they've done in phase 4 with the new characters like Moon Knight and such, but they are really kind of making it more fit in the MCU instead of taking a comic book character and trying to fit the comic book into the MCU. It's or taking this character and making them fit as they would fit in the MCU. You're starting to see a little bit more of the separation between the MCU and the comics,
which I think is important and should be done. You can obviously, the comics are there for inspiration, for base material, and they've done a good job of throwing in little, Easter eggs and symbols and names to pay tribute to the original sources from the comics. But in order to fit it in the MCU, you have to make changes, and you have to update it too for nowadays storytelling.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think they're doing an interesting job. One of the things I did enjoy with this show too, Kevin, and so far it's been in both episodes, but it was especially, I think, really strongly used in the first episode, was the mixing of her art into the live action. I thought that I could see where especially a lot of younger people who really are into that whole the emoji culture and everything like that really would have enjoyed that. And I thought they did it in a fun way to where it fit within this character and the story, and it wasn't something that they were just trying to be forced into doing.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to touch on the cast that you saw in the first episode. Of course, Iman Vellani, who plays Kamala Khan, Matt Lintz, who plays her good friend Bruno, knows about the tech stuff, and then you got her parents. Zenobia Shroff as Muniba, and Mohan Kapoor as Yusuf. And then you got her friend Nakia Yasmin Fletcher. What was your impression of the cast?
I enjoyed the cast. Iman this is her first role, and it's a big role, and it's a big breakout role. Matt Lintz, I was actually a little bit familiar with. He had a couple of seasons on The Walking Dead, so okay. I was familiar with him. And then Zenobia Shroff, who plays Kamala's mother, she's been in several things over the years, and she's got one of those faces you recognize. I actually really liked her other friend too, played by Yasmin Fletcher, Nakia.
Mm-hmm.
I thought she was very good, especially in the second episode, which I know we'll get into. But I think it's a very well cast show. I think the characters, just to see as we move forward and things start developing, who else is going to be pulled in? I mean, there's still a lot of rumors that, well, the rumors are we're at some point we are at least going to see Brie Larson, whether it's just for a moment. But there, I had thought, and maybe I'm wrong, but the actress who played Monica Rambeau is also supposed to be in this show at some point.
Yeah, the 5 minute special they have on Disney Plus where they kind of talk about this series. Kevin Feige has confirmed in that interview, because he pokes in there, talks about it, that this character of Miss Marvel will be in the Marvels film with Brie Larson. So it is leading up to all that. So hopefully we will see something like that. So I say we get into the second episode here, Kyle, called Crushed. And that episode aired actually today on June 15th, 2022, directed by Mira Menon. Kamala begins training to control her powers with Bruno's help. The latter deduces that the bangle activated Kamala's powers, which came from within her. Dissatisfied with the male-dominated leadership of their mosque board, Kamala's friend Nakia Bahadir decides to stand for elections. Kamala, Nakia, and Bruno attend a party organized by Zoe where they meet Cameron, a new British Pakistani senior at school. The party is cut short by police, but Kamala manages to make friends with Kamran, and she gets a little crush.
You think? Just
yeah.
a little?
Yeah. When she starts dancing when she gets home to, that classic song, yeah, she's crushing hard. Very cute. Bruno becomes frustrated when Kamala is infatuated with Kamran and chooses to spend time with him instead of training. After having a vision of a mysterious woman and blacking out during a family dinner, Kamala asked her grandmother Sanya and Muniba about Kamala's great-grandmother Aisha, the original owner of the bangle, but both dismiss her. After questioning Zoe about her savior at the event at AvengerCon, Cleary and Deaver order a sweep around the tri-state area targeting South Asian communities. At the annual Eid al-Adha celebration, forgive me if I mispronounce that incorrectly, a young boy slips from a balcony and almost falls before Kamala rescues him using her powers. She momentarily falters after having another vision of the woman. DODC members, led by Deaver, attempt to apprehend Kamala, but Kamran helps her escape in his car. He then introduces Kamala to her mother, the same woman from her vision. Kyle, first thoughts?
So I think we're getting a little bit more into the mystery of the bracelet and what her powers are, and her trying to gain her powers, and what's going on with her family secrets. One of the things I really did like about this episode, and this is where we kind of talk a little bit too about the issues of differences between this show and the comics. In the comics, Kamala Khan is an Inhuman. Now, an Inhuman gets their powers by being exposed to a thing called the Terrigen Mist, and it unlocks latent powers within them. Obviously, the Inhumans are not a big thing right now in the MCU, but I think it's very interesting the way they found it by saying that this bangle that she has is tapping into something within her. It's a power that's already within her, and it's just giving her the amplification to come out. So I'm going to be very curious to see how this plays up. Obviously, too, they've changed her power set from what the character is in the comics, and I think there's legitimate reasons for this. But I also find it interesting just the family mystery going around, and who is this guy after all that she gets a crush on, and it turns out is rescuing her at the end, and here's his mother, who's the woman she's seeing in the visions. There's a lot of interesting different angles going on. Again, I love what they're doing with Nakia, and I actually I'm liking the Bruno character because it's very interesting. Now he's got this offer to go to California for this special Caltech thing. And
I have something in the notes about that later, Kyle. I want to ask you about something on that. So,
okay. What about you, sir?
I was really this second episode I thought was great, and I gotta tell you, I'm just really impressed with Aman in her performances as Kamala / Miss Marvel here. She's absolutely wonderful. Of course, what are they calling her? Nightlight.
Yeah, we got to change that.
But she is just absolutely wonderful in this, and I'm liking we get her friend Nakia, Yasmin Fletcher's character, highlighted too, because she wants to run for this mosque role here, and so we get a little bit more about her, And then, of course, we get Cameron, who's the hunky British Pakistani kid, played by Rish Shah. He was good in this as well. But the scene that I found fascinating was when they were at the festival, and all the ladies are talking about this cursed lady, or this lady who leaves curses, the ones that the character Nimra Bucha. I'm sorry, that's the actress's name. Najma, I guess is the character's name, and how everyone thinks that she's a cursed woman, and no one wants to talk about her. And of course, this is the woman that we meet in the car that Cameron introduces as his mother. Right? Am I remembering that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I thought that was fascinating to kind of see where this is going, and we'll touch more a little bit on the possibility of those characters there. But I also like the reference to Bon Jovi.
Yeah, I want to throw in one scene real quick too that I thought was very interesting.
Hold on. I want to sit on Bon Jovi here for a little bit. Don't dismiss Bon Jovi. Come on.
I'm not dismissing
this is
Bon
Jersey,
Jovi.
man. They are kings, Jersey kings, and she. And Kamal's mom mentioned "Slippery When Wet," 1987. I mean, that was a huge album. They are Jersey royalty. I wanted to sit on that for a second. I don't want to bypass it. So anyway, go ahead.
Okay. I want to talk about the scene where she's with Cameron in the little whatever it was, little cafe or whatever, and her brother's there, and she's trying to hide it, and then the whole cover up of who Cameron really is. Because I thought that was an interesting reflection because of how she's trying to hide things from her mother, not because she's trying to lie to her, but because she knows her mother wouldn't approve, and the family is so overly protective of her and things like that. So I thought that was a fun and little interesting scene there.
Yeah.
So one other question for you, Kevin. I want to go back to episode 1 too. Mom knows what's going on. Mom knows there's more to this bracelet than meets the eye.
Oh yeah. So maybe mom, I don't know. Maybe we'll find out it didn't work for mom. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe she doesn't have the powers inside her. We don't know. It's interesting to see what happens. So, but I got an article from our friends at Den of Geek. Our friend Kristen Howard dropped one on June 15th, and this is for the episode 2 review that she did. And she goes on to say, I've noticed that Phase 4 of the MCU is rather heavy on the old bangle, bracelet, cuff mythology, and I'm more convinced than ever that there's something to it. When it later turns out to be a coincidence, I'll have to eat my words, but so far we have the 10 rings of unknown origin in Shang-Chi, the Uni Mind in Eternals, and now the mysterious power-unlocking bangle in Mrs. Marvel. Is there a link between them? Well, we don't find out this week, but I'm not convinced that we'll find out in this particular series, even if there is. Kyle, I thought that's kind of interesting that we're having these articles of importance. What is your thoughts on Kristen's take there?
I don't think there's any tie-in with anything that's going on with the Eternals. That's its own thing and stuff like that. But I do find it interesting with you have the 10 rings of Shang-Chi and you have this bracelet bangle of Miss Marvel. But what's interesting about that is that how Marvel has changed both of those things. In the original 10 rings were always actual rings that the Mandarin wore. They were different rings, and then they changed it to these kind of bracelet kind of things. And in the case of Miss Marvel, she didn't need this bracelet, the power. She was an Inhuman. She got exposed to the mix. It changed her DNA to give her powers. So I am curious to see if they're going to try to do something like this, or if it is just an absolute coincidence.
Well, Kristen goes on to say in the article, speaking of Eternals, we get an offhanded mention of one of those very synthetic beings for the first time since their Big Green debut last year, when Kamran cringes about his mom still being into Kingo Senior, Bollywood fare, using a casual first date with Kamala. It's a fun detail. I got a chuckle out of the idea that Raj Kingo Diva, played by Kumnal Nanjani, not only covered up his uncanny looks and his immortality by claiming that each new movie star was from a single family line, but that their nicknames were simply just Kingo Senior, and then probably Kingo Junior and Kingo the Third. And no one has really questioned it. We live in a world where people have tried to prove that Keanu Reeves is an immortal vampire, so that blatant way Kingo has managed to hold onto Bollywood spotlight is incredible. Earlier in the episode, Kamala also jokes that she might have Ant-Man powers because she and Scott Lang look so much younger than they actually are, a nod to Ant-Man actor Paul Rudd's apparently snail-paced aging. Miss Marvel's MCU Easter eggs continue to delight. So there's a little tie-in there with the Eternals, which I had forgotten about because I've only seen it once.
No, they were fun. I love the Ant-Man reference. I thought that was great. And I honestly didn't pick up. I wasn't thinking about it, so I didn't pick up on the Eternals reference. And then they bring it up, and it's like, yeah, it hits perfectly. And what a great in joke within the MCU. And I do find it fun that it is giving these little tie-in references, even though it's right as to this point, it's not full. It doesn't feel like it's fully into that MCU pool quite yet, right. But we're getting there.
Kristen goes on again in the article saying, although this episode was noticeably more relaxed than the premiere, it did allow us to get to know more about Kamala's circle. Best friend Bruno is clearly secretly in love with her and doesn't enjoy Kamran's immediate romantic effect on Kamala. And he's being pulled in another direction thanks to his technological talents. If it wasn't clear from his inspired gadgets or when his cosplay choices were Tony Stark or Bruce Banner in the first episode. Bruno is a burgeoning science bro, and he is now going to follow his dreams and leave Kamala behind. I'm not living for Bruno's unrequited love, but if I'm honest, it feels a bit like a tired trope, and he's an interesting enough character without the awkwardness built in. I think that was an interesting choice to say those. I know that he has feelings for her, and that's obvious, and he's being torn about moving away to this cush school, Caltech, that he has been offered.
Yeah, no, I agree with. I don't really need. I didn't need it. Why can't they just be best friends? I don't need it to be playing up on the love interest. I think he could be, like protective of her, but it's playing off too much of his love interest. And we even saw that hints of that in the first episode as well. I think Bruno's better. Bruno is the quote unquote guy in the chair.
Right. Yeah. Kamala's other close friend, Nakia, played by Yasmin Fletcher, has political aspirations and is eager to make changes to the way women are treated at their mosque. There were religious rituals and intimate chats between the pair that felt really important to see on screen this week. And I hope that the show continues to give Nakia the same depth as other characters. Meanwhile, Kamala's former childhood friend Zoe, perpetrator of some unsettling casual racism in the comics that the series draws from, is painted as more of a fairly harmless, quote, popular kid version of Cordelia Chase or MCU Flash Thompson once again here. But it will be interesting to see what her role is in the future episodes, if she's set to be a mere annoyance and not just an antagonist as such. And I noticed that her character is in one of the, several of the Miss Marvel posters as well. So I'm wondering what kind of role, if any, she's going to have a larger role there. But back to Nakia, I thought it was an interesting moment that she had with Kamala in the bathroom, where she talks about how she's like too white for some people, too ethnic for others, and that she's found that she's happy with the way that she is now, and that's not going to let her slow her down.
Yeah. One of the things I liked about that scene, and I like about this character, especially in the second episode, was it's a character I don't think we've seen in a while in certain aspects, where she's the really close friend, but she's a little older and a little bit wiser, and she has a strength to her that helps Kamala, and it kind of helps Kamala kind of see some things through a little bit more of a mature eye than what she is, and I like that. It's best friend, kind of maybe a little bit of big sister, but it doesn't feel like it's heavy-handed in that aspect either.
Yeah. Kristen ends the article by saying episode 2 of Miss Marvel was another easy, charming, and entertaining watch, full of endearing character moments and interesting visual punctuation. I am very much looking forward to seeing next week's installment. Hopefully we'll get more into the Bangle, Kamala's great-grandmother, and her new powers, so that she can begin to move away from idolizing Captain Marvel and become the great young superhero she's destined to be. And she gives this episode a 4 out of 5 rating. So
I think that's fair. I'm curious too to see how long they're going to play up the idolization of, because she always has that, but when she gets more into the classic Miss Marvel costume, I'm curious to see if they're going to do that now, or they're just going to wait till the end of the series and put her in that classic Miss Marvel costume that she's most famous for in the comic industry. So I'll be curious to see how that plays out. But Kevin, I think it's time to activate the Tesseract and move into phase 2 and talk a little trivia. Okay, Kevin, we got some trivia here. You did the research on this, and I love this first one because it ties into one of our favorite movies around here at the Fandom Podcast Network.
And it ties into her artwork as well. Kamala is seen watching Scott Pilgrim versus the World on TV, and this is in the first episode, Generation Y, which a series takes a lot of inspiration for the clever use of graphic element to tell the story. Coincidentally, the film features actor Chris Evans and Captain Marvel herself, Brie Larson. It was directed by Edgar Wright, who was at one point going to direct Ant-Man in 2015 and is still credited as a co-writer and executive producer. It definitely had feelings of, or essence of, Scott Pilgrim when you watch it, especially with all the animated sequences that enhance the story. And, especially when she was walking with her friend Bruno and you see all the artwork moving along the walls and stuff like that. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I thought the Scott Pilgrim thing definitely kicks that even into more gear. One of the things I liked, too, in the trivia here, Kevin, was the fact that Alan Menken's Star-Spangled Man from Captain America, the First Avenger, was being played as they walked into Avengers Con. I just thought that was just absolutely perfect in that situation.
Can I just say this? Can we please have an Avenger Con? Can this be a real thing?
Yeah.
Just make it happen. Disney, call it Avenger Con. Make it happen. I would go to that. Would you go to that? I'd go to that. Principal Gabe Wilson is named in honor of Kamala Khan's co-creator, G. Willow Wilson. The principal even has a nameplate of the initials GWW on his desk. What else we got?
Oh, this is one of my favorites, too, because it ties into the wonderfulness that is Hawkeye. During the end credits, a moving truck with "Trust a Bro" emblazoned on the side passes through frame, a callback to the moving business that notorious tracksuit mafia had shown in Marvel's limited series Hawkeye uses as a front. And of course, Trust a Bro is going to be in Jersey.
That's right. Kamala Khan is the fourth superhero to use the name Miss Marvel after Carol Danvers, Sharon Ventura, and Carla Sofin, a.k.a. Moonstone. Yeah,
it's got the name Miss Marvel has an interesting history in the Marvel comics, but I like this. Kamala's classmate wears a comic book accurate Carol Danvers Miss Marvel costume to the Avengers convention. It's an Easter egg because her friend points out that the costume is not even accurate because it is not from MCU canon. And of course, that is Zoe, her friend Zoe, wearing that. The costume she was wearing was a dead on for the original Miss Marvel costume back in the 70s.
We got a couple of trivia points here for the second episode, Crushed. The lights behind Kamala after Cameron left everyone outside Bruno's place turns into hearts when they go out of focus. Just like the effects in Scott Pilgrim versus the World, when Scott and Ramona are in the bus after the first evil X attacks him. And Muniba mentions a partition to Aramir's fiance. This is a reference to the independence of Pakistan and India in 1947, where a single subcontinent, India, gained its independence from the British and was partitioned into two countries, India and Pakistan.
Yeah. I'm glad they threw that in because I think it's important that they throw in that kind of history there. I think I really like the fact that they did that. I think it adds,
and that was all done after Indiana Jones got rid of all of the heart-eating culties there.
Well, yeah, they're always a party downer, man. I mean, just always. So, well, that's going to wrap up the trivia. We're going to take a quick break here, let you know what else is going on around the Fandom Podcast Network, and we'll be back as we'll dive more into some Tesseract industry in energy and move into phase 3 of this podcast.
Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. We'd like to continue to feed your ears by inviting you to listen to these other great shows on the Fandom Podcast Network. It starts with our flagship show, Culture Clash, discussing the latest in entertainment pop culture. Bloody Kings, Immortals Take Notice, our show covering the entire Highlander universe. Couch Potato Theaters, where we celebrate our favorite movies. Time Warp, the Fandom Flashback podcast discussing a year in movies and our favorite retro movie and TV pop culture topics. Good Evening, discussing all things Alfred Hitchcock. Union Federation, our Star Trek and Orville show. Hair Metal, the 80s and early 90s rock metal podcast. Type 40, our show covering the time-traveling Doctor Who universe with host Dan Hadley. Lethal Mullet, an 80s and 90s action film podcast with host Adam P. O'Brien. Also check out the Lethal Mullet Network for more great podcasts. What a Piece of Junk, a Star Wars podcast with hosts Scott, Derek, and Nathan. Making Treks, a Star Trek podcast, a deep dive into the final frontier with host Mark Newbold and Adam P. O'Brien. And check out our newest shows, The Fandom Show, our monthly Fandom Podcast Network live YouTube exclusive show about the month's hottest topics in fandom, and the FPN True Believers MCU podcast, discussing the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the related Marvel television and streaming MCU universe, including the connections to the original Marvel comics. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on several platforms. Please subscribe to the Fandom Podcast Network YouTube channel to receive notifications of new podcast episodes and live events. You can enjoy all of the Fandom Podcast Network audio podcasts on our master feed at fpnet.podbean.com. The Fandom Podcast Network is on all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast and iTunes. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on Facebook. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. You can also find the Fandom Podcast Network on Instagram at Fandom Podcast Network and on Twitter at FanPod Network. Thank you for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom.
And we are back and looking to dive more into the mighty world of the MCU with Miss Marvel, Kevin. Without further ado, it's time to release a little more Tesseract energy as we head into Phase 3. Now, I'm looking at the notes here, Kevin. You bring up a very interesting question in the notes. Let's talk about damage control. Now, we have seen damage control at least a couple of times in the MCU, mostly in Spider-Man, and in some ways creating things that are just turned into problems for Spider-Man. First in Spider-Man Homecoming, because yes, Adrian Toomes, he's getting all that fun alien tech until a damage control walks in and just seizes the situation.
Yeah, he didn't like that.
No, didn't go well. Created the Vulture, all kinds of problems. We also saw damage control in No Way Home. The Department of Damage Control claims cleanup for the damage left from the Battle of New York, as well as some other things. They were also investigating people with powers when Spider-Man's identity was revealed. Damage control went after him, and now they are doing the same to Kamala. What do you think, Kevin? Just from what we've seen of damage control in this series, are they good guys, bad guys, or somewhere in the middle?
So the question is, why damage control is chasing Miss Marvel?
Yeah.
So I guess damage control is a department that now exists because we have alien invaders, alien visitors, we have superhuman powers, alien powers. So anything out of the abnormal when it comes to powers of being that normal humans shouldn't have or do have, it is their job to investigate and confiscate items like, remnants from the Battle of New York with the Avengers and Loki, whether it's people developing powers or showing powers, which are popping up now. They're kind of like the superhero police, I guess. I don't know, Kyle, that's a question for you, since this is the section where we dive into any ties to the comic books and stuff. What does damage control do in the comic books, if any?
So here's the interesting thing about damage control in the comic books. It was actually a comedy comic book. Damage control was this organization, and they cleaned up and rebuilt after superhero battles. That was
okay.
So, but part of the in joke was they would always find some oddball thing. Like maybe it was a leftover Doombot or some weapon that got left
Okay.
behind in the battle, and it was causing him havoc. So they're playing it a little bit more serious here, I think.
Okay, wait, hold on. Back up.
Uh,
Where would the damage control show up? Was it a standalone issue? Would it show up at the end of a big Hulk comic battle, Avenger comic battle? Like, how did they put damage control into scenes in the comics? How did that work out?
it basically started as its own miniseries. It was like a 4-issue miniseries, and basically because a lot of Marvel fans were like, "Well, who cleans up after these? You know, what happens after these battles?" And they did it. They did a couple of miniseries, and then at one point, Tony Stark, when around the time of Civil War, kind of expanded what damage control did, and so I think they're kind of playing off of that aspect.
Okay.
But it was a fun comic. It was funny. They had a good time with it. Obviously they're going a little more serious here. I kind of feel like we got good cop, bad cop going on right now.
All right. Yeah.
With damage control. I think their role is pretty much I don't think there's necessarily evil intentions, but I think their role is to make sure when superpowered beings show up that they're not there to cause real big problems.
Right.
And maybe even if they have an artifact or something like that, maybe like, well, yeah, we just need to collect this artifact here because, you know, this can't be floating around out there. We don't need more Infinity Stones popping up out of nowhere.
It's true. It'll be interesting to see what happens with them in this series. The other thing is the big question at the end of this episode. Kamran's mother, who is spoke ill will of throughout the episode. And Kamran's mother could be the key to unlocking Kamala's power in Miss Marvel. Kamran's mother in the comic books, I found out, Kyle, is Bushra. Through her role in the source material seems to be significantly less important than her role in the Miss Marvel show. Considering the changes to Kamala Khan's superhero origin for her MCU appearances isn't necessarily surprising. Though the MCU has always taken inspiration from the comics, it's never seen a carbon copy, and the twist with Kamran's mother is just a sort of intriguing change that Miss Marvel will benefit from. All that is known about Kamran's mother so far is that Kamala has been seeing her in her visions, meaning Kamala and Kamran's families have been intricately linked, as the bracelet has helped to unlock Kamala's powers once belonged to her great-grandmother. The coming episodes are sure to grant audiences an answer as to the family history and how Kamran and his mother may be involved. Kamran's mother makes an appearance at the end of this episode, too. The first appearance of Kamran's mother, Namja, played by Nimra Bushra, isn't actually when Kamran picks Kamala up in the car at the end of the episode. In fact, Kamala sees Najma twice before in the episode when she has mysterious visions. Even though the episode is titled Crush, the deeper storyline here seems to be about Kamala trying to uncover her roots. While at first she believes the bangle from her grandmother is what gives her the power, she realizes that her powers come from within, and the bangle simply unlocks them. We learn that Kamala's grandmother Sana escaped on the last train to Karachi during the partition of India in 1947. But when Kamala asked about Sania's mother, Kamala's mother said that she brought shame into their family and refused to speak to her. Kamala then asked Sana about the bangle, and Sana explains that it was passed down from her mother, Kamala's great-grandmother, Aisha. This makes us consider the fact that Aisha could have some sort of magical powers. As Kamala learns more about Aisha, she sees a mysterious woman in her visions. This woman turns out to be Najma, who Kamran says is her mother. In the comic books, Kamran's mother doesn't seem to play a major role. It's clear that Disney Plus's Miss Marvel is taking liberties with the storyline and her origin story. In the comic books, Kamran's mother is named Bushra, and she doesn't really come into play at all. However, there's a character named Naja, just one letter off from Najma, and she happens to be an Inhuman, just like Kamran and Kamala. Perhaps Najma is the MCU mashup of Naja and Bushra. One last thing, on the other hand, Kamran also becomes somewhat of a villain in the comic books. He charmed his way into Kamala's good graces, only to lure her into Lineage. Lineage's goal is to create an army of Inhumans, convincing them that they're part of superior to humans without magical powers, and Kamala wants no part of it. Similar to the MCU series, Kamran does get Kamala into the car. Could Najma actually be part of this plan to bring Kamala to Lineage? So, Kyle, what do you know of this lineage line in the comics?
Honestly, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know a lot about it because Miss Marvel was a character that I never really dove into. Most of my familiarity with her is through team books that she was in, like Champions, where she teamed up with a young version of Nova and the younger Spider-Man, Miles Morales, and
Right.
there was a few other more young Marvel heroes. That's where I have a lot of my connection with Miss Marvel. So I haven't read too much of the Miss Marvel comic, but I do know that this show has definitely varied very far from what her original origins were. Obviously, I talked about that a little earlier with the Inhumans and how what her power set is completely different in the comics. In the comics, she has the ability to grow, stretch her body, make certain parts of her body larger, and even shapeshift for a short period of time. Here, they're playing more of the energy, kind of almost a little bit of like a Green Lantern kind of power set
Right.
or something like that. So I understand why they're doing that because I think it's more of an effects thing than anything because it's really hard to be able to do just like that one body part enlarging where it looks good and the stretching and everything like that. But I'm very curious about how what the storyline is going to be. I still have a belief that this bracelet bangle is somehow Kree related. I think that's how they will tie her into like Carol Danvers.
Kree, huh? Interesting.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it could be that maybe part of her family lineage is Kree. So I think that could be an interesting take. But I gotta tell you, Kevin, when she gets in the car and she turns around and she sees her, I'm sorry, that's a face I'm not trusting. That's a
Well, let me ask you about that because Kamran in the comic books becomes somewhat of a villain. This boy that she has a crush on, right?
Mhm.
And with this person this woman that he mentions is her mother, and that she's interested into getting to know Kamala. Is she going to be uh, a mentor, or is she going to be kind of have villain sides to her and want to do something with Kamala a little more nefariously?
I'm leaning that way. I think what we could be seeing here is there's a lot of different angles at play of people trying to go after Kamala and influence Kamala, and I think that's something we're going to see as we dive into these remaining episodes, as we get more about her lineage, what the story is with this bang bracelet. And I'm just going to throw this out. I know this is we're going to get into some predictions, but I want to throw this out while I'm thinking of it. I think this bracelet will eventually be destroyed, and Kamala have had it for so long, she have fully unlocked her power set without having to use this.
So
bracelet.
she won't need the bracelet to get bring her powers out, right?
Yeah, that's just something I'm thinking we could
Okay.
see.
Okay, so I alluded to earlier about Bruno's acceptance to Caltech. He's got an all expense paid tuition, I guess, that's going to happen, which is really good news. And but it's in California. It's in the West Coast, Kyle. So, is this another tease to possibly setting up the West Coast Avengers with maybe Kamala following him out there and him being part of the birth of this? What do you think?
I think
Am I
West Coast.
am I reaching here? I mean, tell
Yeah,
me you didn't think that when you saw that scene.
I wasn't thinking what honestly. I wasn't thinking West Coast Avengers. You know what I was thinking?
Hold on. You're telling me this kid who's the guy behind the desk, the Mr. Tech guy, gets a school free ride to Caltech in California. You didn't think West Coast Avengers at all? I was the one that did.
Well, no, because and here's I could see Champions or Young Avengers. I wasn't really thinking West Coast Avengers, but Kevin, I will say this: I did think something. I thought Iron Man 3. You know
Okay.
what? He's going on some kind of scholarship program.
Right.
Could it be a similar scholarship that maybe our young friend from Iron Man 3 might have received at some point?
Right. Okay.
So
Possibly.
maybe this, there's been a lot of talk of that young man being involved in something future, maybe in Ironheart when that comes out or something like that.
He's
Maybe
he's featured in the Avengers of Campus attraction when you wait in line for the Spider-Man ride there in Disneyland, the other park right next to it, the California Adventureland. His picture is up there with a lot of other like Avenger affiliated people. Harley, that's his name.
Yeah,
Character's name's Harley. So, and it's like a picture of him, what he looks like now, you know, like an older kid, like we saw him at the end of Avengers Endgame when he was at Tony's funeral. So yeah.
Yeah, and remember, Stark Industries in the MCU is based in California.
Yeah, it's true. Yep. So, Kyle, was there anything else that you wanted to bring up? Any final thoughts regarding these first 2 episodes of Miss Marvel?
Well, for me, I mean, I'm intrigued of where it's going. There's a mystery here. I'm intrigued by the mystery. Yes, some of the young adult teenage things not appealing to me, but that's fine. They're not designed to appeal to me. They're designed to appeal to a different viewing audience aspect of this. But I am very curious as we're looking more and more into this and all the pieces are falling in place and where our players are going to be. I really see this as Kamala is going to be pulled probably in a couple different directions in the aspect of her family, whatever this tie is in with this bracelet that's giving her power and wanting to solve that mystery. And now with damage control moving in, and also with her friends, you know, I think she's got, and then you add into the aspect at some point, we know Carol Danvers is going, it looks like she's going to be involved in this. And I think it's going to be an interesting pull to see which direction she goes, because I could see her making a bad choice here in this show that rectifies itself later later towards the end of this season. I think this is a fun ride. I really give Marvel a ton of credit for what they're doing right now, Kevin, as far as doing different things with their shows. You know, we look at Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, whether you liked it or not, it went with that more darker side of the MCU that we really haven't seen. Moon Knight was something different than anything we've experienced in the MCU. Miss Marvel is something different, and I think She-Hulk is going to be something different when that comes out in August. And obviously we know we're going to get different with Thor Love and Thunder because it's Taika and everything with him is different. So I'm really liking this aspect of Phase 4 with Marvel, that they're taking more chances and they're doing more things with it, and this show is just another great reflection of that.
I was reading online, and I can't confirm this, but it seemed to come from a reputable source that that Pakistan doesn't have Disney Plus. So what they're doing with these episodes is they're actually releasing like the first 2 episodes back to back in the theaters, a theater release for people to see. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, I have heard about this. It kind of fits because each episode, these are some of the longer episodes for a Marvel series. These first 2 episodes have both been right around 49 to 51 minutes. Right, and I think that's going to continue. So that makes sense to put them together as a movie. And I'm betting that maybe that was even intentionally planned because they knew Disney Plus wasn't in Pakistan. And I know they really are trying to give this character that huge push for the region. Yeah. And I think I think this is one of the things Marvel is very much succeeding at right now, is having some really incredible diversity going on.
Yeah, agreed. Definitely. I'm enjoying the series thus far. It's an interesting, different look into the MCU, and I got to give credit to Marvel and Disney for producing these shows and exploring different cultures at the same time, as well as exploring these new, heroes and their history and their backgrounds. And I'm liking that we're getting something different, and this is good Disney Plus programming. I think it's perfect for this. The only thing that I would wish is I wish we would get more than 6 episodes of these things. We got them, we're getting 6 episodes for this, we're getting 6 episodes for Moon Knight, we're getting 6 episodes for Obi-Wan Kenobi. I wish they would just make it like 10 episodes. I don't know, just my personal taste. But we're going to be coming back to Miss Marvel after the next 2 episodes. We're going to come back after episode 4, after we watch episode 3 and 4 together, and then talk about those 2.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. Kevin, there was one, aside from Miss Marvel, there was one interesting piece of news that broke this week that I didn't talk about. Marvel announced the Thunderbolts project finally. MCU announced the Thunderbolts project. And this is important, Kevin, because I'm going to go back to Black Widow. I'm going to go back to Falcon and Winter Soldier, because Julia Louis-Dreyfus' character, I think that is what they are setting up. They are setting up the thing she's doing to create the
we lost William Hurt's character, Thunderbolt, because he passed away. So they're going to have to kind of go to someone else, I guess, right?
Yeah, but there's ways to work around that. But they're definitely setting up with U.S. Agent, probably with Yelena. I think you could see the Abomination as part of this because that would make some sense with, you know, the showcase Tim Roth is getting his Abomination between Shang-Chi and what's coming up in She-Hulk. I could see that.
I can't wait for She-Hulk. I'm really excited about that.
And of course, too, let's not forget, for all you longtime Thunderbolts fans, Baron Zemo is a big part of Thunderbolts history.
That's right.
So Daniel Bruhl coming back as Zemo, I'm all in if that's the case.
It's true. It's true. This should be fun.
So, but you know what? It's been fun taking our little trip to Jersey. It's not as bad as what they say. We got a few more weeks to explore around, maybe find where that secret side Avengers Con is, because you know there's rumors of that underground Avengers Con. Kevin, you know, so Wakandan artifacts everywhere. I'm just saying, maybe a few Kree things too, and possibly a Star-Lord Zune. I think you might be able to find that Star-Lord Zune.
I don't know what that is.
His little digital player that he got at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 2. The Zune.
Oh yeah. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
But that's the point. Nobody knows what a Zune was, or they don't remember at any rate. But it's been a blast. I'm looking forward to seeing what direction Ms. Marvel is going to go in, because I think it's going to have major ramifications for the MCU, especially since we know the direct ties to the Marvel's film coming out in 2023. I'm excited, Kevin. I'm enjoying the fact that you're fascinated by what's going on right now with Ms. Marvel and that you're intrigued.
Yeah, I am. I didn't go with any expectations, which I think is important to do, and just go with an open mind. And like I said, I'm a big fan when you learn about culture from other people in other countries, and I've always been open to that ever since I've been traveling when I can, and I love learning about that and the fact that we get little pieces like that. I think it's great.
Yeah, I agree. But like I said, I think this is going to be something special for a lot of different people for a lot of different reasons. But you know what, everybody, I want to thank everybody out there for listening. Of course, you can find the Fandom Podcast Network on our homepage at fpnet.podbean.com. Visit our YouTube page, give us a like, give us a subscribe. Also, to visit our Fandom Podcast Network Facebook page and our Amazing True Believers Facebook group, Kevin, where we keep everybody updated on what's happening in the MCU. I am, of course, Kyle. You can find me on Twitter at AKyleW or on Instagram at AKyleFandom. Kevin, where can people find you on the social medias?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Spartan_Phoenix, and you can also find the Fandom Podcast Network on Twitter and Instagram.
And we will be back in 2 weeks to cover episodes 3 and 4 of Ms. Marvel. We're excited. We might find some interesting cuisine in Jersey while we're there. It's Jersey, who knows? But thank you for all of our wonderful listeners out there. Until next time, Excelsior and make ours Marvel.